Hey Dalen, it's Max. I wanted to share with you the market analyses that I did on the three properties. I have the three properties: the uh, fourplex in Kiowa, the commercial property in Kiowa, and then the Main Street property in Elizabeth. And looking at them from an aspect of an investor, which all three of these properties would be, um, if you look at the yearly profit, so investors are essentially buying profit streams, and you can see, uh, what would you pay for a profit stream of 31,000 versus 33,000 versus 20,000. I have two different, uh, the actual profit stream or yearly profit on the Elizabeth property versus the projected once you increase that rent on the one unit. And so that's essentially it. That's what people are looking to purchase, is a profit stream. Now, not only the numbers, but also the security as far as the longevity of the rents, how stable it is, and how basically how easy it is to manage. As a owner, you realize that out of these three properties, some are much easier to manage than others. If you have one tenant versus four tenants, one tenant that doesn't take a lot of maintenance, like the Comanche property, right now is probably the most valuable profit stream that you have. Right now, the fourplex probably has potential to be equal in value to the Comanche property, but the problem is you have to raise those rents, and as you've told me several times, those particular renters are most likely not going to be able to handle a rent increase. So you would have downtime, you would have cleaning up and remarketing, finding a new renter, which is all going to cut into this profit stream on that Kiowa property. But the County Road 45 fourplex has increased in value the most. So there's the most equity in that property. The profit stream is a little bit less than the commercial property, but the equity value is more on the fourplex. So looking at these, this is the cap rate. You could think of the recapture rate maybe of what percent interest or what percent profit you would make based on a sale price. So a potential buyer at 450, based on these revenue streams on the fourplex, would recapture 6.8% of their purchase price annually. If we priced it a little bit lower, that would be a 7% recapture or return on the investment at the 435 price. So these numbers in the high sixes up to 7 is kind of the standard of what investors are looking for in their return on investment. So based on the yearly income on each of these properties, and I put down on Comanche, I put down 0. You said it was about $100, and I'm going to call that 0. You have at a $500,000 purchase price, you have about a 6.6% annual return on the investment, and if you lower that, we are approaching that 7. The 7 is kind of the magic number. 6 in the high 6s to 7s is that return on investment, like I said, that most buyers, investors are looking for. This one, the Comanche, when we look at just the numbers, those are the numbers, high sixes up to 7. The Comanche also has a little bit more stability. One renter that pays on time, doesn't go late, has a long-term lease, and then on top of that, it's a medical facility, which is going to have a hard time. They're going to have a lot of expenses to move to a different location. So their willingness to stay is probably much more than if we look at these 4 people up here that are in the fourplex. You have one that's currently late, and you have some inability to raise rents, even though you feel like they're not at market value based on the renters that are currently in there. So I'd say right now the Comanche is the most solid renter, and this one is also producing a pretty good revenue stream of $31,000 a year after expenses, but it takes a little bit more to manage, and I think you can attest to that. If we look at the main street in Elizabeth, the expenses are what's killing you in Elizabeth, and the expenses are what's making it in Comanche. Look at the expenses in Comanche, $100 or less. The expenses on Main Street are very expensive. This property is paying over $8,000 a year in taxes. And so right there, you look at this one right here, you're starting out with a lower yearly income. You're paying $8,000, more than $8,000 in taxes on this one. This one, you are making $9,000 more annually, and the taxes alone are only $1,400. So, but when you start adding water out in Kiowa is pretty darn expensive, and all of your utilities can add up. So, but when you look at the revenue streams on these 3 properties, these 2 are pretty close. This one in Kiowa could come up, or the fourplex could come up with some new renters. But this one, Main Street in Elizabeth, even though it's the easiest to maintain for you because of its proximity, it's the least profitable annually. And because that revenue stream is smaller, then in order to get the same kind of return on your money, it has to be priced lower. So at $330,000, we have a 6.5% return. And so I think this gives you a good idea of where the prices could be, should be. We might be able to throw out a little bit higher prices, but I think even in this market with investors, you guys have your head in the news and you know what's going on in the market. We might be able to flirt with a little bit higher prices, but I think that at these prices right here, to start in these prices, if we go on the market, we could have a bidding situation. And it might bring it up a little bit from there. But anyway, there's the prices. This is what kind of where I'm saying, here's where you might start. And I would say that you probably wouldn't go below these numbers. I wouldn't think you would need to go lower than these. Start in here. And then this projected one, it looks like you're about 3 months off of changing these numbers. And so you can see even like a $500 increase in monthly rent has a fairly significant impact on the value of the property. So there you go. If you have any questions about this, the cap rate is calculated by figuring out your yearly profit and basically figuring out what percentage of that is the purchase price.